Confidence, a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. On today's show, my guests and I both agree and align on confidence and knowing that if you don't believe in yourself, no one will believe in you. So it's important that no matter what you do, whatever your passion is, you've got to believe in yourself and know that you put every bit of effort into the thing that you are passionate about. So that no matter what the outcome or no matter what anybody tells you, you are a winner. So remember that. A little bit of inspiration before we dive deep in today's amazing interview. My guest today is a Hollywood actor. He's been in the industry for decades and worked with some of the biggest names, from Tommy Lee Jones to Nick Cage, to starring in films like No Country for Old Men, Sin City, and working with directors like the Coen Brothers and none other than Robert Rodriguez. Welcome, actor Chris Warner.
Thank you, Ruben. Appreciate it, brother. Good to be here. Definitely good to be here.
Like I said, you've been in a lot of movies. I want to really take a deep dive into how you got into films and what really lit that fire to spark you to make that your journey and your goal to do that in life.
Wow, that's a big question.
I know.
Yeah, I've always been a huge fan of movies. My dad reminded me, I think it was last week, he gave me a call and he goes, "Hey, do you know what today is?" I said, I forget what day it was now, but he's like, "You know what happened 40 some odd years ago?" Of course, that ages me there, but I'm like, let me think. So 40 yards, I was 7 years old. We were just moving to Texas. He just got stationed to Fort Hood. And literally the night we moved to town, there was a theater across the street and we went and saw the King Kong. So I guess if I had to put a finger on when maybe things started, maybe that was it, is seeing that movie and always loving the experience of a movie. I know that theaters are, I don't want to say in trouble now, but I know with COVID and the way things happen, people wanting to go out and experience that has kind of shifted a little bit. And I'm glad that things have come back around like they have, because just the movie experience of seeing something larger than life, if you will, being completely captivated by that did just that for me. It captivated me. And so as I was coming up as a kid, I was more of an athlete doing that kind of stuff. I wasn't necessarily a thespian or interested in being in that. I did play Santa Claus in the 5th grade and Santa Claus in the 12th grade. And those were both just kind of class projects, but I was never in theater arts or anything like that. But to cut to the chase, again, I'd always been interested in movies, rented movies, watched movies. And I was working with someone at the time and we were having lunch and talking about this movie that I had just recently seen that I kind of wanted my money back when I came out of it. And I thought very arrogantly that it can't be that hard, right? And so I thought, oh, the acting thing might be cool. And I come to find out she was not only an actress, but wanted to be a director. And I started hanging out with her and her friends. And this was back in Austin, Texas. I live in LA now. And as I started to hang out with them and got interested and more involved in that community, started taking classes and got headshots, got a coach and eventually got an agent there. Each step that I took with it, my passion grew. It stoked the fire in me that I had finally kind of found the thing I was meant to be on this planet. It took me a while. I've had, I think my wife and I figured 63 different jobs in my whole life. And I've worked 3 jobs at once at one time, just trying to find that thing, that fill that void. Yeah. And I was 28 years old when I found acting as a profession, if you will. So
those life experiences, though, like you're saying, all those different jobs that you worked, I could only imagine that just like adds to the fuel for you, because you get all these different perspectives, you know. So even when you have to do different types of roles, you kind of know what to step into and where to come at it. You know what I mean? Whereas some people don't have that life experience to be able to do that. So you add this authenticity because of that, I feel.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. I talked to a bunch of young folks that are trying to get into this initially. And tell you the truth, I'm glad I didn't move to LA as, let's say, a 19-year-old young man. I'm glad I did live some life and got punched in the mouth, if you will, by life, and had some wisdom and experience to bring to that. Because I tell people all the time, yes, take classes, learn how to learn your lines, learn how to hit your mark, stay in frame, all those things. That's necessary. But if you really want to become an actor, someone wants to pay $20 to sit on the edge of the edge of their seats and watch you, go live some life. If there's something that you have an inkling that you want to do, if you jump out of a plane, learn to ride a motorcycle, play the piano, go learn to do those things. Because what you're doing then is filling the tool belt of the characters that you play, not the actor you are, but the character becomes that because you are that. So yeah, it's live life. That's how you can be a great actor, I think.
And anyone that is aspiring to be an actor, actress, you know, the cool thing is you actually were from Texas, came over to California. What's interesting now, it's not all about Hollywood anymore, right? Like all these film productions, like everywhere taking place, like Georgia and Atlanta has a big scene, and you got all these different states now with credits that are more beneficial to filming there, right? But someone anywhere else in the States like that wants to get into this, what's like your recommendation for them? Like the step process? Because sometimes it could seem a bit like someone might be like, where do I start?
Yeah, the landscape has changed completely since I started. When I first started, digital was just coming into play, right? Now, digitals make platforms for everyone. So you're right, and what you said earlier, Ruben, is not only with digital, but with COVID coming along, it made things necessary to stay local, if you will. So we were forced to be resourceful as an industry, and come to find out, a lot of jobs are stay at home, or a lot of projects are stay at home type projects. A little quick story or segue: right before COVID, I had shot Willys Wonderland with Nick Cage in Atlanta, and literally the day that they wrapped was the day that the entire country or the world shut down. So they were able to get a principal photography in the can before they wrapped, but that was done in Atlanta, and Jeremy Davis, my good buddy who produced that, actually ended up he with COVID, he kind of went around the United States to stay with relatives, but he ended up planting back in Atlanta. He lives in Atlanta now, and he's working on trying to produce a couple things in Atlanta locally. Now he works with financiers everywhere, some out here in LA. But you're right, Ruben. Atlanta, they call it kind of the Hollywood of the East Coast.
Yeah.
You may not even need to come here to shoot something that would be a studio or network thing, based on what they've built out there, with kind of Tyler Perry leading the way.
Oh yeah.
But suggestions for anybody starting is, if you have one of these,
cell phone,
and you have a cell phone and access to social media, you can create content. And a lot of shows are picked up nowadays, and people are probably reading about this in the trades. A lot of shows are picked up, or ideas are picked up based on things that they come across on social media. To be fully transparent, I haven't taken advantage of that myself enough. So I may be putting myself on blast here, but yeah, it's amazing how you can just be a creative now, and then take the success from that and leverage it into something maybe bigger or maybe not. Again, you have the ability to control the distribution route to a point now. I don't know if you guys watch Hacks or not, but that was very evident in the new show Hacks. And the season finale is you got somebody who is famous already and was having trouble with distribution, and she's like, screw it, I'm gonna make it myself.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when it became famous or big, she had the leverage. Now the studios wanted to pick it up, or the networks wanted to pick it up. So yeah, I would say make content. I wouldn't even say great. I don't want to put that kind of pressure on anybody. I mean, if you got an idea and it works for you and it resonates with you and it keeps visiting, keeps coming back to you on a daily or weekly basis, just make it. Yeah. Make it. You can edit it. If you can't, find an editor. That's what I tell folks too, is if you're just an actor, make friends or relationships with writers, make friends or relationships with directors and producers, and then you have your team built. Make whatever you want whenever you want to, and put it up on the platforms available. And then again, you can just throw a site up on Wix or WordPress, and if for whatever reason they don't stay on the socials, build an email list and send it to your email list, and you're just building a fan base right there. So that's just a general suggestion I have for folks, is go ahead and create your content. Now on the back end, if you want to go do the Hollywood thing, sure, take some classes, get some good headshots, get you an agent or manager, and continue to go out on those auditions on a regular basis. But the way I explain it too is a 2-lane road. On the right lane, that's your right lane. That's your daily thing. That's your regular speed limit. But when you want to really get up the road, move over to the left lane, create your own content, see how far you can go with that until you create the next piece of content.
I'd like to touch base on that actually too. If it's something for people to understand if they're trying to get into the business is this the failures and the successes and the audition process, you know? Because I've been in the industry before too, my younger years, and I know, the audition process where you get some gigs, you don't get some gigs, you know what I mean? It's give and take, but it's like you can't let the ones that you can't let the failures bring you down. They'll have to strengthen you, and you just have to understand it's just a part of the process. What are some tips that you would give to aspiring actors, actresses, or even anyone trying to get entertained? It's not even just acting anymore, right? It's just even musicians. I'm a writer now, so like I understand a lot of all the scripts I write. Not all of them go through, but some of them go through, and boom, you know what I mean? So there's a lot in relation to a lot of different careers in that aspect, and I'd love to hear your take on how you handle that, the audition process, and how you go in there, and when you think you got it, and sometimes maybe you think you got it and you did it, and then sometimes you think you might have not gotten it, and then you get it, the gig, so it could go all kinds of directions. So we'd love to hear your take on that.
I'll start with a kind of an ingredient of the secret sauce, and I don't tell this to many people, but because it's kind of unbelievable, but it's really the truth. Is I think to pursue any kind of entrepreneurial endeavor, and that's what artists are. We're entrepreneurs. Is you have to build your confidence up to actually have a reserve of arrogance, and people are like, "Hang on, big boy." Well, I mean arrogance in a good way. A lot of times, it's a very lonely road, and you've got to be able to lift yourself up on your own. And rejection knocks you down on a regular basis, and you have to build an armor. And part of that armor is some sprinkles of arrogance. To believe that you're the baddest person on the planet who does what you do better than anybody else. Now, that's something that you feel on the inside. You're not walking around the streets kind of mouthing that to folks. But what you do is you have to have that on the inside, kind of like the Allspark from Transformers.
Yeah.
So you can regularly touch it when you have those down days of the rejection, which comes, like you just said, much, much more than the acceptance come. So I would say work to build your self-confidence. However you do that, a lot of people have different methods. Some people say meditation. Some people say learn martial arts. Some people say read books. I think whatever works for you, I would make a suggestion, but whatever combination of those works for you, and then hone your craft to where no one else can play this role other than you. Now, whether you get the role or not, that's a different story, but no one can play that character better than you. It could be just a personal taste, and that's something that you can't control. But all you can control is the person who walks into the room, and your arrogance, as I say, that's when it really turns on, and you take control of the room, and no one gets it back unless they wrestle it from you or you relinquish it to them. And that, I think, is what probably keeps me going most, is knowing that I'm bringing the best I can in the room, whether they cast me or not. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't have moments of reflection and going, what could I have changed or done better in that? But honing my craft to know that whoever auditions against me can't do it better probably galvanizes my confidence more than anything that I know. The other thing that I do is I'm seriously very critical of myself. So nowadays I've only been on one live audition in 28 months. So I believe taping at home has helped the process because it allows us to take after take and really analyze what we're sending in before we get a chance to. So that's a benefit to actors. And I'm an actor who does analyze what I do. And I go back and go, nah, let's take that out and put this back in. And I believe actors help themselves when they're able to critique their performances honestly, and then go back and be able to correct those as best they can. And when I say correct, I just mean get out of the performance what you think would best represent the character. Again, you hear me say this, not what they want, but best represents the character in the way you feel the character should be represented. So the core belief is have confidence or super confidence in yourself, and then hone your craft as sharp as you can. So every time you step into the room, there's no doubt that you were there.
You're talking about that, like harnessing the craft and getting into the character. I remember a really iconic scene in No Country for Old Men with you and Tommy Lee Jones. That scene with the truck bed And that actually, I'd love to. That'd be, be fun to deep dive into that. Actually, you getting into that character and becoming that person. When I saw it, when I rewatched it, I knew it's you because we've been together in person before. You know what I mean? And it's like I knew it was you, but still watching it, I still like believed it, and that shows the talent that you have. You know what I mean? That you can become that character, and actually that scene in itself, man, that movie in itself, right? I mean, holy smokes, that movie, the people that you worked with on that film or were involved with in that film, I mean, they're all top level A talent. Holy shit, the villain in the movie, probably, man. I mean, I can't be wrong in saying he's got to be like one of the top villains of all cinema history. In that movie.
Absolutely, man. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. He had a presence that very few have. Only one I can think of right off the top of my head is like Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter, maybe. But
yeah.
it's got to be at that level just because of his presence. I mean, yeah, he was a ridiculous villain that is remembered to this day, as you're talking about. So,
Yeah,
um,
Javier Bardem. He when he was in that, um, I know when you worked the scenes with Tommy Lee Jones in that movie. Were there bits where you were around Javier to get to see some of that stuff in action when he was getting shot?
unfortunately, that day he wasn't around. I didn't
Yeah,
get to you meet him or be around him that day. It was just me and Tommy Lee.
yeah. But I mean, even working with Tommy Lee, wow, how was the chemistry working with Tommy Lee Jones? Actually, the back and forth with him.
I actually start all the way back to the casting process, and you probably heard
Awesome.
that statement of you have to walk the path alone, but you don't walk it alone. You have to do the thing by yourself, but you don't get there by yourself. And
Yeah,
I have to give a lot of credit to Joe Edna Bolden, who was the casting director, local casting director for that, because I actually worked that role through my Texas agent, and that's where we shot in Marfa, Texas. But
nice.
I got a call like on a Thursday, I think maybe, and my agent was like, "Hey man, can you be here tomorrow morning at 4 p.m. or tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m.?" And I'm living in LA, and I'm like, "Let me try to figure it out, man." So hopped on a plane, got there, and I read for the role initially of the cab driver that drives Josh Brolin
Hmm.
to the hotel when he realizes Anton Chigurh is there.
Yeah,
Like tells him to keep going.
yeah.
Well, I'm very fortunate that I didn't get that one because I don't know if you remember the movie. And this is being very, very actor like. Is that character never got any FaceTime. All you
Yeah.
did was hear his voice.
Hmm.
So I get there and I read, and I think I've read two or three takes. They redirected me, and when I walk in the room, it's Ethan's on the right, Joel's on the left, and then Joanne is over here to the left. And I get done, and there's a silence that hangs in the air for like it seems like forever, but it's probably about 3 seconds. And then Joe Edna pipes up and goes, "Did you guys want him to read for anything else?"
Uh-huh.
And so they're like, "Yeah, have him read for this, and that." Okay. And so they give me the sides, and I go back outside, and they give me about 15 minutes, and I'm looking at these, and the more media role, if you will, is the flatbed truck driver. And so I won't lie to you, I probably concentrated on that for majority of the thing because the other ones might have been the chicken truck driver and somebody else I can't remember. But I get in there and I did the take or two, and Joel said to me, "Hey man, Chris, you made that role sing," is what he said to me.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so I'm like, "Well, cool." I'm like, "Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that." And and that was it. You walk out and you're like, "Well, man, I hope I did something good." And then I get a call back later that week, and hey, man, they booked you for the role. They want you. And so at that time too, they knew I lived in LA, so they actually flew me there, picked me up in El Paso, and we drove for 3.5 hours to Marfa. And so we shoot that day. I get out there that morning. Tommy Lee and the wife character are shooting on his ranch. They actually use his ranch out that area. And I go to that location. They take me to that location for whatever reason. They're wrapping and we're moving out. They had the flatbed truck out there, and they're like, "Can you drive standard?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, that's the first car I ever had." So
Yeah.
we drove that truck to basically a roadside. That's the roadside you saw, and we set up a mini base camp about 200 yards down the road that can be seen. And when we get there, I'm kind of standing around waiting for instruction, and Joel goes, "Hey, Chris, let's take a walk." So Joel Coen and I start walking toward the location,
Yeah.
And he goes, "Hey man, so tell me about this role. Tell me what you think." And I had created this backstory of the guy, and I basically thought he was Tommy Lee Jones's dumbass nephew. Not
Hmm.
dumbass, but he just didn't. He was a redneck country dude who
Yeah.
kind of just didn't give a shit.
Hmm.
And his mom had passed away, and Tommy Lee, in her last on her deathbed, had promised she'd take care of him as best he'd take care of him as best he could. So, this guy probably has odd jobs along the way. He does construction, and he threw him some money to go get these bodies because they don't have a coroner.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the backstory I built for him. And so when you see me or my character come around that corner and he's in the office and he's like, "Ah, goddamn." So he comes after me. He's like, I knew he couldn't do it. I knew I could have him go get these bodies and do it right. So that's why I feel like he was irritated getting out of the truck. It's like I'm his kin, I'm his blood,
Hmm.
but it doesn't seem like I am. And that's where I felt like he was coming up right out of the gate. And he's my uncle, let's say. In my mind, he's my uncle, but he's still the sheriff. So country folks tend to be respectful that way. And so when I get out of the truck, obviously, "Sheriff, like, how you doing, Uncle? Uncle Sheriff, how you doing?" So, and he's irritated, and he's probably gotten in my ass this way my whole life, just
Yeah.
because this character's been this way. So that's kind of how I chose to play the character, is that this is who my uncle is, or this is who the sheriff is. And whatever he said, my biggest concern, obviously, at the end was, you're gonna write me up for an improperly secured load. That was my biggest thing. I didn't care about the bodies. If they fell off, they fell off. They're dead, right? I'll just get them and throw them back on.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole backstory I created. And I think, to give the character the presence that you mentioned, I want to thank you for your compliment there, is to give that character that presence to a point. That's kind of the backstory you have to create to bring to a
Yeah.
moment so short. I mean, that was
Hmm.
6 lines. So, yeah, that's kind of the story in and around No Country. And then Tommy Lee is a very professional, focused gentleman. He's kind of all business when you're on set. So we weren't really having a beer in between takes.
Yeah.
And I think with the close-ups in the master, I think it was 11 takes maybe that we did. And then lastly, just some behind the scenes information. At least with this movie, Ethan directs the actors, and Joel directs from behind the camera, is the way that they ran it. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Truth and justice.
Oh, we dedicate ourselves daily anew. Something like that.
I'm gonna commence dedicating myself twice daily. Might come to 3 times before it's over with. Oh, what the hell?
Sheriff?
You looked at your load lately? That is a damn outrage.
When those tie downs work loose.
How many bodies did you leave with?
I ain't lost none of them, Sheriff.
Couldn't y'all take a van out there?
We didn't have no van 4-wheel drive. You gonna write me up for improperly secured load on me?
You get your ass out of here.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Like, how was it working with the Coens? I mean, they're legendary. I love all the westerns they do. I just watched True Grit. I had not seen that movie. I just watched that recently, and then I saw the Ballad of Buster Scroggs, I think it's called.
Yeah.
That was really good. I really liked the gold miner story that was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how was it like working with the Coens, man? I mean, this is they're legendary, especially in the Western genres. They're. I mean, I can't think of anyone that does it better in modern day film.
No, those guys are great. I mean, it's cool to see them work together. And then, Joel walking up with me and asking me about the character. And yet after that, Ethan kind of took over. So
Yeah.
I didn't talk to him about the character much at all. I think Ethan redirected me a couple times, but it was really about the cadence of the character's dialogue or something like that. It wasn't some big arcing moment that he was talking about. But yeah, as soon as we cut, Ethan would come over, make a suggestion if necessary. He'd be back, and we'd be back to one. But these guys are real. They're gentle souls. They want you. The way I felt is they wanted you to be the best artist you could be. I mean, the story, they're going to make sure the story takes care of itself and everything comes together. But they wanted you to be the best you and that character you could be. So If you had questions, they were open to them. It wasn't like, the old, drawing a blank here, Alfred Hitchcock, where he basically thinks actors are props, So they really cared about, us giving them the best performance we could. So, those guys were super cool, super chill and laid back. And it was a pleasure. And just to talk about kind of Hollywood behind the scenes, what's crazy is just because you kind of do one thing one way doesn't guarantee you the next thing the next way. What I mean by that is I actually got to read for True Grit. I read for the character that they come upon in the cabin.
Oh, okay.
That they end up killing. Mm-hmm. And I read for that. Didn't get the role, obviously, but again, that's how Hollywood works. Is just because you work with guys and they've cast you before doesn't necessarily mean that's the way it'll work out the next time. But to be able to be remembered and read for those guys again was a great opportunity. Definitely.
Yeah, going back to those 11 takes you were talking about, how on point are you with the script, and is there's like some ad-libbing, and like each one of the takes, do things change a little bit between you and Tommy, or is Tommy kind of switching it up, or you switching it up? Like, how is that going? And then even when you do it, the take that they use, was that a take that you thought, all right, they're going to use that one, I just know it? You know what I mean? Your intuition, or explain that, because I'd love to hear that. I know that's a thing. Yeah.
Sure. That scene was pretty tight, because when you get on a set with a writer-director, as an actor, you want as best you can, especially when you have Academy Award-winning writer-director, you want to stay on script as best as possible. And because that was a fairly short, tight script, it would be hard not to get those lines exactly like they are. So we ran it pretty much like it was on the page. Yeah. Sometimes with writers or directors, they allow you to play what I call the whole sandbox, not just the little corner you've been given. And I think they were those, because they're brothers that write together. I think they really hash out what they want with the shooting script. So for you to be, I don't think that to be honest, they didn't allow us the whole sandbox to play in. And it's probably because, at least with those two guys, they had really probably played in the sandbox themselves, and they'd really gotten that down to what they wanted to hear or see. I will tell you this much: it's an extremely insider joke. The take where I deliver the last line, my wife gives me shit about it every time she hears it. Because if you hear it, I say, "You gonna write me up for improperly secured load on this?" Well, on this is not in the script. So to answer your question, that's not completely true. They did choose, because the line is, "You're going to write me up for an improperly secured load."
Interesting.
On this is not there. And I don't know why I chose to say that. I don't know why they chose to keep that. And some days I don't know, my wife gives me crap about it.
Well, that's authenticity.
But she does, yeah. It just seemed like what he would say, and it came out that way. But so I guess maybe I set the foot outside the corner of my sandbox with that, but there in that case, they chose to keep that take. And here we are. Yeah. And then I'll give you guys one little behind the scenes note about that as well. So I told you I've done many jobs along the way, and one of my day jobs has been security. I've worked red carpets. I've guarded Tom Cruise and Britney Spears as a security guard. Well, the night of the Golden Globes in 2000, what was that? 5 or 6? 2005 is when it came out. So Ethan and Joel are inside the Beverly Hills Hotel for the Golden Globes, and I'm at the Golden Globes too.
Yeah.
I'm in a suit and tie as well. I'm just sitting in a folding chair outside a satellite truck behind the Beverly Hills Hotel, doing my security guard job.
Yeah.
On the night of the Golden Globes, which they did win that Golden Globe. So that's my little story about attending the Golden Globes with the No Country for Old Men.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I like all this behind the scenes stuff, I mean, these star-studded names, all these people that you work with, Chris. I mean, Brittany Murphy, Nick Cage, Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, the list goes on. But was there one that just kind of, stood out to you more as it was going on, So
I'll fall on that arrogance part is probably the biggest one of the first time was the first big role I got, or the first role I got opposite of a star, as you were saying earlier, is when I was in The Life of David Gale opposite Kevin Spacey.
Oh yeah,
Um,
okay.
it I think it initially it was bigger than what it turned out to be on set, and the reason that I think is actually on that movie I helped the casting director with some things like casting extras and stuff. So I had become kind of part of the project before the project, and I was
Yeah.
around it. And I had met Alan Parker, who was who's a world famous director, and I had talked to him and been around the process. And it almost each day I was around it, it almost made it. I don't want to say smaller, but it made it common. Man, that's
Hmm.
the wrong word to use too, but it made it more natural. And so the day that I auditioned, which I actually auditioned for a role I didn't get. So I auditioned for feed store guy, and I ended up getting hospital orderly. Um,
Okay.
but by the time by the time I was on set shooting, it wasn't as big as what I had imagined, because I believe I was around the project more often and kind of saw the behind the scenes before I even got behind the scenes. And so when I get behind the scenes on set, even nowadays, I will stay on set most of the time. I won't go back to my trailer. I just grab a seat and a coffee, and I listen and I watch and I listen and watch. But I consider myself a storyteller, a filmmaker, and everything I can pick up along the way to make me better at that, I will do. So I watch and listen on things that could make me better. And in that case too, even during the casting process, just watching and listening, watching Alan do what he does as a director. So when I got on set, I could kind of understand his process without just coming on set and be like, okay, here's Kevin, good luck. And what is interesting about that, and maybe I built some trust with Alan beforehand, is so if you see that scene, I get physical with Kevin at the end.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
and we didn't rehearse anything. And it's if is it a stunt or isn't it? I lifted him off the ground and we got pretty physical. So it would be considered a low level stunt. And we
Yeah.
never practiced anything or how hard he would come at me or whatever. And so, yeah, and one thing, I kind of hit him in the chest pretty hard and lifted him off the ground. And again, this is at the time, it's an Academy Award winning actor who's the star of a $60 million movie. You don't
Yeah.
really want to hurt him
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
any way. But I think we did 9 takes of that whole coming down the thing and stopping him. And being around him at that point and knowing what he had done up to that point, I think I took it all in stride. And I don't want to sound, it sounds very cocky, and I don't want to sound that way. But what I think I learned early on with the confidence part and the arrogance is once I've been cast, so I do the best job that I can. I try to convince myself in my head, okay, now we're peers.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I belong here. I'm
Yeah.
supposed to be here because I did my song and dance. And they said, no, that's what we want, buddy. We're paying you for this. So I would almost do myself and the process and everything else a disservice if I didn't show up, even if I had to fake it till I make it, so to speak, of being present at the moment. But I don't think I ever felt that. And I think maybe now that I think about it, Ruben, you put this on me. It could have been the fact that I didn't find my calling till I was 28 years old. That maybe my wisdom of life gave me some belief in myself that didn't
Yeah.
allow me to be overcome by the moment. So,
Hmm.
but I remember that. And what's fun is my wife got to be an extra on the set that day, and she was there with me to experience it, which was kind of cool. I mean, that was really
That
cool.
is cool.
And maybe that's what tempered my nerves, if you will. Having support, the support that's always been there for me, with me on that day. But it was also getting to share that moment, because the first big role I had was opposite Lily Taylor in a $1 million independent film called A Slipping Down Life with Guy Pearce. And that was the first big actor I'd ever acted across, was Lily Taylor. And then the first real big movie star I'd acted across was Kevin Spacey in that movie.
You the doctor?
Yes.
Well, what's wrong with her?
She's gonna be fine.
Well, how do you know? You haven't even looked at her.
Calm
She just
down.
collapsed. She was opening her mail and she just fell over. I don't know what's wrong. Please. Is there a doctor? Excuse me.
Wait here.
I have to go with her.
Hold up, Professor!
Excuse me, I don't want to.
You want to get arrested again?
How do you know who I am?
I watch the news. Now go wait.
I'm always been a cut up man. I've always been an attention whore, whatever you want to call it. So when the lights come up and everything's happening is when I'm at home. I don't tend to get nervous when the lights come up and there's all kinds of excitement. I just kind of feed off of it, and it's fun for me. So
You know what? That the point you're making, coming correct. That's what I like to call it. Like, you come with your A game. I relate to that because I have a past history, like in my 20s as a professional skateboarder. And like, if I'm not going to believe I'm going to land the trick, the filmer's not going to believe it. The sponsors aren't going to believe it. Like, and also I have to believe that I'm going to do it, because what am I going to just pointlessly jump off of something and get hurt? It's like, I'm going to try because I know I'm going to land that sucker and I'm going to ride away. You know what I mean? You have to be confident with everything you try like that. And that transitioning to everything I do now, if I'm writing scripts, if I'm writing comics, stories, and things, when I'm submitting that in, I'm submitting it because I know it's good. You know what I mean? They could tell me it's not, but I know it's good in my heart because I put the effort. And by the time I was ready to release that, I had that confidence. So I came correct. It's like, and when I do get hired for a project, same thing as you said, I'm like, I got hired for a reason. This is what I do. This is why you pay me. So like, I'm going to bring my A game. This is what you should expect of me. And I totally understand that, Chris. I mean, you have to do that. And I mean, even the thing like you're saying, that phrase, like, fake it till you make it, for anyone, listening out there, honestly, like, if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe you, and people could see through that. You know what I mean? So you got to come correct, That doesn't just go for acting. That goes for like everything, right? I mean, I don't want to be flying on a plane with a pilot that's like, I'm not, I just got to be honest. I don't really know. You know what I mean? Like, that's the last thing I want to hear. You know what I mean? I need to be up there with someone who's confident they're going to land that thing. Don't even tell me. Pretend like you're really good at it if that's the case. You know what I mean? Like, because it's almost like a placebo effect for them. If oh, I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. Then they'll do it. They'll pull it off, better than someone who was, you know what I mean, on edge of their seat the whole time. So, yeah, there's a lot of points in what you're saying. Back into the acting stuff right here, because right now you're on American Auto. You play Gary, right, on NBC on the television series.
Yeah. I played Gary on American Auto. Yeah, I think it's the 5th episode. He's a line worker on the automotive plant that they're fixing to open. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, that was a fun day too. And a gas tire. That might have been the lightest, funnest day I've ever had on set, because it's a comedy and nothing's really serious, man. I mean,
yeah, we
had to do take after take after take because they, comedians or comedic actors, they naturally go in the whole sandbox. So the producers and the writers, that's just the way it runs. It's not like, okay, I'm going to do my best to stay on script and I'll give you 1 or 2 takes clean. But after that, it's the dogs off the chain, man. And so, yeah, that was a fun day. It was a real fun day.
Can you break down the differences on, because you've done it all at this point now, television versus film? There are differences for those people that don't know out there, like when you're on set, the schedules, even the pay rates. You kind of like break that down.
Well, if you're in Hollywood, TV is king. TV and streaming is king. I mean, that's a majority of auditions I go on or get are TV and streaming auditions. Big difference too is with TV auditions are usually quick. They've actually kind of given us a little more room lately. Yeah. But it's funny though. I think that 3 of the 4 last auditions I've had are actually for, one was a series regular and 2 were reoccurring, and they gave me 4 or 5 days to prepare because it was like 5 or 6 pages of sides.
Yeah.
Different scenes and stuff. Well, the last one I just got a call from my manager 2 days ago, and they're like, "Hey, man, are you available tomorrow?" Because they were just wondering if you're available and seeing what happened. I didn't book the role, but it was literally, "Are you available?" I didn't even have an audition, but I think it was kind of a "what does he look like" kind of thing. And then there's one I got about 2 months ago that needed it in 45 minutes.
Wow.
Can you get this to us on tape in 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah. Fortunately, it was, I think, 3 lines. But with TV, it's usually a very quick turnaround. Usually it's the next day.
Yeah.
But the last 4 or 5, they've given me 3 or 4. Now with features, you could get a week to prepare for a scene to turn in or to go to. And then the casting also is different. Usually it's 2 or 3, 4 days, you know, you're on the TV show and you're going to shoot the next week. With features, it could be a month or two out before you get cast and to shoot for that. So those are two differences as well. And like I said, here in LA, it's more TV than anything. A lot of my Texas calls I get are for features that shoot there.
Yeah.
That's the two big differences in TV and film. Once you're on set, TV tends to run, just like with the casting, tends to run faster in the production because the turnaround has to be so quick. With, again, features, you usually have 6 to 9, maybe 9 months or a year to cut that together and get it out. They have obviously a projection for release date, but there may have to be reshoots. You may have to shoot additional stuff. So normally those days go, I don't want to say slower, but it also depends on the level of film. If you're shooting an independent, it probably clips along pretty quick. But if you're shooting, you know, a $60 or $100 million studio film, it might take its time because they want to make sure everything you get in the can is what they want seen.
Yeah.
Also, they could leave some room. I remember working on Sin City, Machete. I was working on Machete.
Oh, Machete, yeah.
And they ended up having, so we shot practically in a hospital, older hospital in Austin. And the day got pushed because some things just took longer than expected. So they literally brought me back and recreated the room in a sound stage to reshoot that day.
Wow.
Just that one day, because some things that were kind of beyond their control happened and they really needed that scene. So they're like, well, screw it, just tag it on the end and we'll reshoot it that day. So again, when you've got the money and the time, then you can do that. I was surprised they called me, and sure enough, man, they called me up and we shot that whole scene. The same thing happened on the Idiocracy as well. Mike Judge, they brought me back for another day because things got pushed around, but that's a feature film. Yeah. They can't do that on TV because they need the episode next week or 2 weeks from now, and don't do a lot of reshoots.
Yeah.
If anything, things probably get cut.
Mike Judge, he was from he did Beavis and Butthead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of other shows, right? Of everything you've worked on all these years, what has been your most memorable or most favorite project that you've been a part of?
Well, dude, Sin City is probably the most memorable project. The reason being is I worked 2 weeks on that, and to be there shooting it and then to see what Robert released is amazing. I mean, most of what we shot on the scenes I was in was a complete green soundstage. The floor was green, the walls were green. Almost everything we did was green. There was, when we were in Brittany Murphy's apartment, the walls and the cabinets were practical, but they just brought those in, tacked them up, and they were just walls. They weren't, it was on the soundstage itself. Because when you look through the window, there's a green screen that they had to put action outside of. Like the scene with Alexis Bledel, where when they're in the car, they took an old treadmill and they took it apart. They took all the things off and they painted it green. And they had a guy on the ground cranking it as she walked on it next to us. So that's how they got her walking down the street next to the car. Wow. And we're sitting still, actually, in that case. And then, of course, everything around us, the buildings and everything. When Miko was standing on the edge of the building looking down on us, I think they put 2 2x4s together and painted them green, and she's just walking on a 2x4 on the green screen soundstage. And then, of course, they put a whole city up underneath her.
Wow.
But to see what he did, or see how he shot that, and to see what he put on the screen, even to this day, is just like, holy shit. Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm a generous guy. He is generous, but that temper of his, you never should have picked on him like you did. My temper, you don't have to worry about.
Shut up and keep your hands to yourself, or I'll cut your little pecker off.
I've been told.
Oh, you don't want to be.
And probably the most fun, though, I got to play in the whole sandbox was the Willys Wonderland I shot with Nick Cage.
Yeah.
Kevin Lewis, the director, he kind of let me loose with that character. And like the bit when we start the movie in the truck where I'm going on and on about just nothing, that's all improv. They're like, wow, what are you doing this? So we had about 8 runs of that because I had to make sure I got the story the same almost every take.
Yeah, you're consistent.
and then be consistent, because when you cut that, you've got the editor's got to be able to kind of cut away at the right time. So that was fun. I mean, I drove the shit out of that tow truck so much that the Teamsters was like, dude, man, we need to get you on the payroll so you can get double dip in here. Because at first he was backing up, and then after that he's like, hey, do you think you can back this? I'm like, sure, man, let me try it. I backed it up like a champ or whatever. And so after that, he and I got to be good buddies. But just to kind of play in that playground, drive the trucks and do the stunts and all this, it was a lot of fun. And when the director just kind of lets the character develop in front of him and in front of you, that's a good day on set for an actor, that's for sure.
Hey, Jed, what's up?
This old boy had the misfortune of finding your zigzags out there. I figured I'd bring them back to you.
You all right?
Yeah, he'll be all right. Tires not, but he'll be fine. He got this pretty Camaro though right here. It's that SS, it's that ocean blue, nice and pretty. It's got that black rim. We're like maybe 120,
Jed, I'll come by and get him
turning
later
around, spinning out everything. You just slid right in there and then pop, pop.
I don't have time for this today, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Many years ago, I lost track of how long ago it was, but you and I did a signing at San Diego Comic-Con together. We had different booths in different spots. But I was so stoked to have met you that day because at the time you were pitching the Punisher project that you guys had going, and that I thought it was so cool because it's like I thought you made such an awesome Punisher, but not only that, I was so stoked on like that you had like a love also for like pop culture and just that kind of industry in itself. You know what I mean? We do have a lot of like pop culture listeners here.
Well, I guess I'll start with the poster that's hanging on my wall right where I look at it every day. Rocky has always been
nice.
One of my favorite characters. And I even got a little Rocky figure I keep here on my
that's what's up. Yeah.
on my desk as inspiration. But I've written, and I'm a writer as well. That's actually kind of pivoted when COVID happened. Dusted off a few features I'd written and wrote 2 more over COVID. But one of my features actually pays homage to Rocky. It's actually kind of updated with being an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
I'm a big combat sports fan.
Nice.
And so, with pop culture, Rocky's one of my favorites. The Punisher, Frank Castle, is definitely one of my favorites. I'm actually a Darth Vader fan.
Nice.
I'm a Thanos fan.
Nice. And you got to be in a movie with Brolin, right? So
yeah, I got to be in Josh Brolin and Thanos himself. I'm a big fan of characters that are misunderstood, I guess, if that's what you want to put it. When I write, the way I put my bios is I write characters that are the anti-hero. DNA. The DNA anti-hero is what kind of runs through their veins. They're usually a one-man army up against insurmountable odds. They're deep in the muck. So those are kind of characters that draw me to them. Liam Neeson and Taken. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
You know,
I will find you.
Yeah, I will find you. So those are characters in pop culture that tend to resonate with me most. I always call it the misunderstood misfits of society, and misunderstood for odd reasons. I know people probably look at me a little cross-eyed when I say people like Thanos and Darth Vader, but you know, these guys tend to look at life a little differently, if you will.
Yeah.
So, and then actually probably most recently is Billy the Butcher on The Boys. I just appreciate his aspect of, I love that show. I love the gritty violence and the in-your-face moments that they've had, especially this season. But yeah, I'm a big fan of The Boys. I like the edge they create. I love Garth Ennis. I mean, he's off the charts. One of my favorite comic writers. So, and I mean, I took that's the story. One of his stories I took and adapted in The Punisher is The Cell, which was written by him. So,
that new season of The Boys just came out. I could totally see you as like a character on that show. That'd be so sweet. If you know what I mean? That's such a good show. I haven't seen the new season because it just came out, but I've seen all the prior seasons. I was waiting for this new season to come out. And just barely finished watching like, Stranger Things, so now it's gonna be on to like The Boys, But yeah, such a good show. Totally agree with that. All right, I'm gonna dive deep into these final questions here. I ask ordinary questions to extraordinary individuals, and today we have someone incredible here, Chris Warner. So we're gonna start with these simple questions here before we round off the show here. Chris, what is your favorite color?
Blue.
What is your favorite artist or band of all time?
So two come to mind, and they're different genres, but hey, man, it's George Strait and Tupac.
Oh, okay. There we go. Do you do a mishmash? I'm sure someone's probably done that, I bet you. Nowadays, there's some crazy remixes. What is your favorite movie of all time? Your go-to?
That's easy, man. 300.
Nice. That another spectacle achievement, right?
Yeah, wow, that was impressive. Yes, sir.
What is your favorite snack or dessert of all time?
Cherry pie and milk duds. I mean, those
There
don't
you
necessarily
go.
go together, but yeah, that's my favorite.
What is milk duds like your actually this is not a question in there, but this had to be kind of fun. What's your like go-to snack at like a movie theater? Or what do you usually get when you sit down, watch a movie? What's like your thing?
So me and my wife, we share buttered popcorn. I
Nice.
usually have Dr. Pepper and milk duds. Yep, that's my
There we
go-to.
go. What is one place you have not traveled to yet that you still want to visit?
Italy.
The grand finale question here. If you could offer one last bit of advice to anyone out there trying to pursue their passions, what would it be?
The one thing that I tell folks is, and this is for me and my big decisions too, is when it comes to making that thing that you're standing on the precipice, if you will, and should I jump or should I step or should I not? I close my eyes and I try to clear my mind as much as possible. I try to see black, as I put it. I take a big, deep breath and I raise my head. And when I exhale, whatever my first thought is what I go with. And that's, in my opinion, is trusting your gut or your intuition, or that's God speaking to you, if you will. That's my biggest suggestion is I know when we get advice from supportive folks, from non-supportive folks, it's a lot to process. It's a lot of noise, right? And I'm not saying that all of it isn't good or some of it isn't good, but ultimately it's your choice. It's your life. It's your choice. It's your memories and experiences that you're taking with you when you go. Make sure you're choosing them. You're choosing them, not somebody else. Not that you can't take pieces and parts from that, but in the end, when you're laying on your deathbed and you lay your head down for the last time, make sure that all the choices you made were yours. And if you got to regret something, regret for doing it, not regret not doing it. So take that chance. Usually, most things are lost to indecision and not the wrong decision. You step one way, you can step back and move, but trust your intuition when you take that step. And most of the time you can't go wrong. And even if you go wrong, fail forward. So that's what I would recommend. Because
Beautiful
think about
words.
this, guys. I'll leave you one more thing. You look at this. You see this? You see this? Most of this, based on the way Hollywood works, should have never done what it did up to this point. I should have never been on set with any of the people I was on set with, been in any of the movies or TV shows I've been in. But I made it happen. And I think whatever is in your heart of hearts, your souls of souls, you want it bad enough, you'll make it happen.
There you go, folks. The man, Chris Warner. Man, what an honor to have you here on the show. Thank you so much, Chris. Is there anything you want to plug before we sign out here? Anything you're working on, or anything you want people to follow, to check out?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, COVID kind of got me pivoted on my writing, and I've been pitching a couple of features that I have now, and one pilot that I'm working on right now. So those are some things that are kind of in the hopper. The other thing I've been working on, and I've actually had this idea for about 10 or 12 years, and I released it. I released a version of it a couple years ago. As I've been working on an apparel brand or clothing brand of my own, and
Nice.
the original I kind of pulled back on, but really where I've kind of not rebranded, but gone back to the original branding of bringing badass back to Hollywood, playing a badass in Hollywood. I've got an apparel brand that I'm going to be launching soon called Badass Original. And you go to my site. There's kind of a page there that is set up initially. The gear's not there yet; it's coming. But Badass Original is something that I want to do, kind of like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, does with Project Rock, an apparel company that supports the characters that I play and the characters that I tend to write and the stories that I tend to write that are surrounded by the Badass Original theory that I think everybody has in them. Everybody's got their own the Badass Original inside of them, and they should stoke that fire as best they can every day. And that's kind of what will help you with that intuition thing I was telling you about earlier. Is go be the badass you know you are.
I love it, Chris. That's I'll put a link into that, so or to your site, wherever, so people could tune in and get some of that gear as it comes out. And you let me know as the drops happen. I'll help you spread the word. I
appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, no, you got it. Thank you so much, Chris. To everyone out there, Chris Warner, you heard him. Hope that inspires you to go out there and do your thing. You got one life to live. Remember, it's yours for the taking. Never give up, ladies and gentlemen. So that's it. Signing out here. Passions Personified. Thank you, everybody. Chris, I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Passions Personified. I really hope you all enjoyed the show. I'd really appreciate it if you left a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is you're listening to this podcast from. I have a lot of great episodes on the way. Lastly, I will be doing the only signing that I will be doing for the best Archie comic ever, which I am a writer on for Archie Comics, and that will take place at San Diego Comic-Con Thursday the 21st, Friday the 22nd. So if you're in San Diego, if you're at the Comic-Con, come by, say what's up. You can find my booth. I'll be listed on the website and in the booklet. Hope to see you there. Everyone, take care. All right?